All right. Hello and welcome to this AIM North America webinar. AI-powered food supply chains are making meals smarter. Before we get into today's webinar, you should have a poll displayed for you to participate in. We will get to the results before the start of today's presentation. First, a little bit about AIM. AIM is an industry alliance that represents any organizations that use, implement, resell, or develop technology around barcoding, RFID, and/or asset tracking technology. AIM is essential to enabling adoption, growth, and interoperability related to automatic data capture technologies and the enterprises that you use technology in the marketplace. If you would like additional information, you can reach out to us at info@aimglobal.org. And while you're filling out that poll, we wanted to go over our antitrust policy. It is a policy of AIM North America to conduct its operations in strict compliance with the antitrust laws. No AIM North America activity shall create even the appearance of a violation of the letter or spirit of the antitrust laws. And our collaboration and work product policy, AIM North America committee meetings are held for the primary purpose of advancements in our industry, which necessarily involve development of work product intended solely for the public domain. AIM North America has developed this policy for the protection of its members who engage in this important collaborative effort. And then just a few other housekeeping notes. All registrants are muted upon entering the webinar, but we still want you to participate. To send a question, select the Q&A icon at the bottom of the screen. We'll get to as many questions as possible at the end of the presentation, and also a recording of the webinar will be available in the coming days to those that have registered. And with that, I will now turn it over to today's moderator, Bud Courville with EM Microelectronic.
Thank you, Bethany. Again, my name is Bud Courville with EM Microelectronic. I'm part of our RFID business unit. Thank you all for joining. I think we'll have an interesting discussion today. With that, I'll let Jordan and Ries introduce themselves as well.
Hi, everyone. How are you? My name is Jordan White. I'm an innovation manager at GS1 US. I'm an innovation manager at GS1 US, and I'll kind of get into what that means and what we do in a bit once it's my turn to chat. I'll hand it over to Ries.
Thank you, Jordan. Thank you, Bud. So my name is Ries Bouwman. I am a software director at Swisslog. We do warehouse automation, and I'm mainly responsible for the tools that calculate how mixed pallets are built by robots and also how master data is governed. So I'm very excited about speaking to you today, how we use data from GS1, but also AI-driven data in the warehouse.
All right. We have poll results. Let's see. There we go. I guess we can all see those.
Cool.
Cool. Yeah, it looks like I'd have to spend some time looking at the different, but it looks like everyone is still early in their kind of early on the adoption side of this. So I don't know, any comments, Ries or Jordan, to that?
I think my comment is I would agree. It seems like people are really early, but I'm glad that people are starting to think about it. And I hope that this conversation can start getting people in organizations to think about how is my master data impacted by AI, as well as how does AI impact my master data, and vice versa. So yeah, I'm looking forward to kind of having that conversation and seeing how the industry progresses over time.
All right, with that, I was just going to jump into a kind of an AIDC and AI primer. EM, we're a member of AIM, and we attend many of the work groups. And anyone on the call that wants to understand more about AIDC technology should absolutely look at attending or joining AIM. So what are these technologies? So this is just a quick slide talking about some of the core technologies that make up AIDC. And here we're looking specifically how they apply to food supply or food safety and supply chain. You can kind of get a feel. I'm sure most people are aware of RAIN RFID, which is kind of universal for traceability, inventory management. Vision systems also very important. Understanding giving you a different view of a particular product. AIDC, of course, is automated identification and data capture. So it exists to generate data about an item at an item level or batch level, product level. Some of the other core technologies, obviously barcodes ubiquitous, as well as things like NFC and BLE. All of these, their focus is that item level identification and unique data about that item. So with that, Bethany, next slide. I did want to talk, one thing that's happening in the AIDC world is we're starting to see a lot of these technologies come together in interesting combinations. So within EM, for example, we have a couple interesting products combining these different technologies. So our Echo family, for example, merges RAIN RFID and NFC on a single IC. So it creates for interesting use cases that extend, bring together the advantages of RAIN RFID and NFC. But beyond that, in the sensor world, things are evolving quite rapidly. Whether in this case I'm sharing or a sense or a temp or a light, these are all UHF, so RAIN RFID based integrations of RAIN RFID and a sensor. But it goes beyond that. I mean, we're seeing this in BLE as well as NFC. You see actually QR codes and barcodes that have sensor capabilities as well. So all of this is leading to more interesting data about an item. So next. So how do AIDC and AI play together? So you can advance once more. So this is actually an AI generated slide. So quite good. It's not perfect, but it only took me probably 10 minutes to get this level of quality with AI. So I have to admit that AI does bring some value as long as you can target it and keep it on track. I would say that I did have a few hallucinations in this process. But specific to food safety and supply chain, this slide captures really how these technologies, AIDC and AI, really are synergistic. AIDC is all about generating data. AI is all about analyzing that data and doing something with the data, something productive or more efficiently. In the future, I would fully expect that AI is going to drive back to AIDC the need for new or different data. So I do see this as really a very synergistic relationship that'll just keep going and iterating on itself, creating a lot of power. But of course, with AI today anyway, so one more click, Bethany, we have to worry about what I call the Terminator effect. And I do that because of my conversations with my family, who they only see AI in terms of Terminator, which of course dates me back to those movies. But we all on this call and certainly within the AIM organization, we have to be careful about how we use AI and how we talk about AI. And we have to demonstrate that it truly is bringing value to what we're doing. So that's an important part of what we'll all have to manage, I'm sure now and into the future. Anyway, so at this point, next slide, I just want to talk a little bit more about what we mean by how AIDC and AI work together. So I had a couple examples. So traceability, this is a classic example, and certainly Ries and Jordan will talk more about this. But here you have RAIN RFID as one of the core technologies to generate that from the time of manufacture to actually sitting on a shelf or point of sale. Retailers and distributors and manufacturers have the ability to see that product move through the supply chain, which creates this data, which within an AI agent or an agentic AI agent can go off and automatically take care of key compliance regulations. So next slide. One of the other areas really, and this is key for food supply, is really consumer transparency. Convincing or allowing the consumer to have a view of a product that gives them confidence that the product is something that is good for them. And so here, some technologies, AIDC technologies typically used are QR codes or NFC tags. So you allow that consumer interaction. So yes, there's the ability for data to get to the customer that way, but there's also the data that's generated by the consumer interacting with the item. And here again, AI has the ability to gather that and use that technology to more efficiently communicate information of interest to the customer. And all of it in the end is building trust with the consumer and efficiency in that supply chain. So next slide. And one of the probably most important ones in food safety for sure is the ability to efficiently do recalls. And here, again, focusing on RAIN RFID specifically, with all this lot information and understanding where a product is in the supply chain, if you layer into that now information about contamination or some other information potentially driving a recall, this creates the ability for AI, again, agentic AI, the ability for on its own to go take action and very efficiently and expediently do something about that product. One more slide, Bethany. But it's not limited there. There are many other topics, and I look forward to the opportunity to talking about these in other webinars, because it truly AI, with all the data that AIDC is generating, it'll have a profound effect on how things are done for food supply and safety chain, or food supply safety. So with that, I'll quit talking, and Jordan, I'll let you and Ries go from here.
Thanks so much, Bud. I think that's a great kind of primer for the work that I'll kind of start talking about. Can we move on to the next slide? This is really about unlocking the next frontier of RFID and what RFID can do. But before I start talking about RFID and AIDC, just a little intro into who GS1 is. So well, I'm from GS1 US. There's about 130 GS1s around the world, sorry. Um, there's almost a GS1 US in every country that North American companies and other companies are doing business with. So France, Canada, China, Korea, India, Chile, Brazil, Portugal, US, massive countries, GS1 Germany, France, Brazil. Um, and just to help get a better understanding of like the scale that GS1 operates at, GS1, we're the company that's responsible for the UPC product barcode. So on any product you see, regardless of where you are in the world, you'll see a barcode and lines on the above the barcode. If you take a look underneath those lines, there'll be 14 digits. Those digits are a unique identifier for that product. Think of a license plate as our license plates represent our address, and they attach that vehicle that we're driving to our homes. A, a GTIN or a UPC barcode is exactly the same thing. It attaches that product to an owner as well as identifies that product. So if it's a Pepsi can, it'll say when that can is scanned, it'll let the computer and person know it's a Pepsi can or Coca-Cola can, whatever you may be scanning. 1.5 million companies use GS1 standards around the world. There are about more than 6 billion barcodes scanned a day. There are 30 plus million GTINs. So GTINs are those little numbers underneath the barcode. 30 plus million GTINs that are used in GS1's databases. This is from anywhere from businesses from e-commerce, healthcare, food supply chain. GS1 also has more than 30 million brand owners. So there are about more than 30 million brand owners globally that input data in GS1 US's essentially data pools. Next slide, please. And just to give you more of a context, GS1 US really hones in on three key pillars of our business. There's identify. So it's about how do we identify products, locations, and identify any sort of data that is attached to those products and locations. Then there's capture. How do we capture that information? So is that information embedded in a 1D barcode, which is a regular barcode that you'll see on any product, or could that information be embedded within a 2D barcode or a QR code or an RFID tag or another data carrier that can be used? How do we pull that information off of that data carrier to help us identify what that is? And then lastly, our last pillar is share. How do we share that information interoperably between trading partners to ensure that no one has to spend millions of hours with data scientists, literally translating that data into what your company desires? Imagine if I'm a retailer, if I'm a supermarket, and every single company or every single product that I sell, that company has to send me individualized, tailored updates and tailored data on their products to then come into my stores. That would be a very complicated process. So what GS1 tries to do is they try to initiate a process where that can happen simultaneously globally. So if Coca-Cola or any brand changes product information in a database, the goal would be to then have that information change simultaneously using GS1 standards. There's a standard called GDSN, which is Global Data Synchronization Network, where if I'm a vendor, I can input and change any data, and that'll be then changed globally with trading partners. But in order to do that, companies need to agree on a standard operating procedure, a standard way to identify, capture, and share product information and location information. And please feel free at the end of this, if questions come up, please feel free to ask them. I'll share my contact information. Please feel free to reach out and chat with me. Next slide, please. Thank you so much. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm an innovation manager at GS1 US. What that really means is I take our standards and try to figure out what can our standards do other than just identify products. So I'm going to briefly talk about a pilot that we did with Ohio State University and robots, where we're using RFID tags to really track and trace the temperature of chicken fingers and French fries as they're being delivered on campus through robots. So for some context, Ohio State is a massive campus in Ohio. There's about 80,000 people on that campus at any given time. They want to still provide food delivery to their students, faculty, and families and staff on campus, but it